Hi, everybody. Welcome again to another session of Yeshiva class, Yeshiva Classroom on YouTube, and Yeshiva Class on YouTube. 3-minute or 2-minute Torah lessons also can be found on the internet. Look, we're going to go right in to start talking about Torah and ideology and make the words of the Torah beautiful in your mouth, because that is the importance of learning Torah, is following it and living by its precepts, because unfortunately the day schools don't have the sufficient time to give ideology, and they basically give a little of the written Torah, a little bit of the oral Torah, and they don't put it all together. That's what's so significant. You have to put it all together in perspective to see how the ideology of all these books and teachings come into practice to live by. Okay, we're going to start off just this bar mitzvah business of, I wasn't bar mitzvah, so therefore I was bar mitzvah. What does that mean? It means that now that you're of age of 13, it's incumbent upon you to be responsible to perform all the directives of the Torah that was given to you at Sinai. We want to bring that word out at Sinai because, at Sinai, there was the word of the Ten Commandments not written, but spoken. And we want to tell you what else was given at that momentous time in our history from the sentences, because Exodus and Deuteronomy, which is a recapitulation, and in addition to new laws, directives are set down. So we want to tie them together and show you about with the psukim, with the sentences, what happened at Sinai. But let's not get sidetracked. We're speaking about bar mitzvah, and what it means is that you are called up to the Torah, and you said two blessings from the 24 books of the Bible. The first blessing is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher bochar bonu mikol hamim. It says that you have chosen us from all the peoples of the world as a special, unique people. And that is found in many places in the written Torah, in Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 6, in Deuteronomy chapter 14 verse 2, that we are the chosen people. Many places in Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 14, it says, to God belongs the heavens and all that there is therein, the earth and all that there is therein. But only in your forefathers did he delight to love them, to choose, again the word choose, to choose you from amongst all the nations of the world, as of this day, choose you as a treasured people from all the nations of the world as of this day. And the second sentence is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher nosan lanu toras emes v'chaya olam notah b'sochenu. He has given us the truthful written Torah and oral Torah, and he has planted everlasting life in our souls. That's the naysayers and all the atheists and agnostics. In the Torah, it says the fact that the soul was planted with everlasting life, and that means the soul world in addition to this world. And how many of us work for that goal, because it says over there that in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, it's very important that you write these things down, because, I don't want this to be like a discourse where you get a little bit of a high on some of the things I say, and then you shut the door and go out to your daily chores. But I want it to be that you will review the sentences that I give you and make a little drasha and recall, and you'll be able to enjoy and to get a charge for your soul, and accumulate positive points. Accumulate positive points, especially in your old age, when you don't have you may not have that many good points, and your time is now in excess of the regular time you had throughout your life, but meaning that you have more time to spend on the commandments. And of course, Talmud Torah, the learning of Torah, is equal to all of the commandments. Why? Because by learning, we will learn how to do. So just let me give you another sentence in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. I put before you life and death. Choose life. I put before you life and death. Choose life that you might live. And that life, meaning that you might live, is referring to the next world, the soul world, which we just told you was written in the Torah. Asher nosan lana Torahs emes v'chaye olam, chaye, life, olam, everlasting life He planted in our soul. Now, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 70, A is the first side, B is the second side, says that all Jews inherit the world to come, as well as the righteous people of all nations, meaning, of course, those that follow the Noahite laws that were given in the Torah, right? So they all inherit the world to come, and unfortunately, it's not like believe in me and you're saved. It doesn't work like that in Judaism. You have to work. You have to earn your points. You have to believe according to the dictates of the Torah, and you just can't say, "I believe, therefore I'm saved." No, it doesn't work like that, and you have to work. And I know from the calls that there are many people, Gentiles, who want to convert to Judaism, but they don't know how to go about it. And I want to tell you all that it's something that we don't encourage, because if you change your mind and say, well, I don't like Judaism and I want to go into a different type of ideology, that is something that you will be chastised for, because once you accept Judaism according to the law of how to convert, you are responsible. And if you're going to go into idolatry and other ideologies of spiritual ideologies, you're going to be severely criticized and punished in the soul accumulation of good and bad. I put before 30 verse 19. I put before you life and death. Choose life. That's it. We have free will. We have the ability. We have the ability to choose between the next world and not getting to the next world. So you don't want to separate yourself from the Jewish people. I'm speaking to the Jewish people now. You don't want to separate yourself from the congregation, because the Torah says if you separate you from the congregation, then you are not in the loop, so to speak. You're not going to get the next world. And that is spoken about by several people who broke away from the congregation, they being, for instance, Korach, right? Korach, who separated himself from Moses and went on to his ideology, separated from the main branch, and therefore he became an outcast, and he separated from the congregation, and he won't inherit the world to come. All Jews inherit the world to come. That is, if you don't separate from the congregation. And I would definitely classify. First, let's bring down another example of separating himself from the congregation, where Yerovam ben Nevat, in the time of Rehoboam, son of Solomon, decided to separate himself and the 10 tribes of Israel from the main body. Now, it was permissible. He was told to the leader by the prophet. I think his name was Shiloh. Anyway, he was told it was only. This is where he tore the cloak into 10 pieces and to 2 pieces, representing the 10 tribes of Israel. But it was only for only a temporary basis. Only a temporary basis was he allowed to separate himself, and he never returned. He had armed guards at the holidays so that the people would not return to Jerusalem from the 10 tribes, who he made a new country out of, right? He made a new country out of. So he separated himself from the congregation. He will not earn the next world, and that is the purpose of this life, to live according to the dictates of the Torah. Leviticus, write this down. Leviticus 18:5. You should live by the precepts of the Torah. You should live by the precepts of the Torah. So he separated himself, and therefore was an outcast. And I would definitely put all those fifth columnists who want to reinvent the wheel, and they arise in every generation. And I'm speaking about the conservatives, the reform, the Reconstructionists, the J Streeters, all those want-to-do good people, but actually they are harming themselves, and they're harming their leaders, who get a degree in ignorance from their seminary, and go and find congregations who have the knowledge of Judaism on a kindergarten level, and he infects those people and makes that congregation ignoramuses. So these people are demagogues. I want to repeat this over and over again, because this is a life and death matter. This is talking about the next world, and having your soul come to that place that the souls live and enjoy the presence of the Shekhinah, the essence of God. The best enjoyment is to praise God. We don't realize how important it is. In the Kedusha it says, Bruch Kavod Malchuso Le'olam V'ed. We praise God for the honor that comes forth from His place. Again, this is in the Kedusha, the holy prayer that we say in the standing Amida every day, 3 times a day. that we praise, we give kavod to God. We give kavod to God, that the kavod being the honor that emanates from His place. Baruch kavod Hashem mekomecho, from your place. We didn't see the place or experience the place, but we only experienced the kavod, the honor that came forth from that place, right? So the place is something out of the ordinary, but we experienced the kavod that came forth from that place. Now, what's the definition of kavod, honor? It's adornment and honor of an entity that has accomplished a great feat. Again, and this we apply to God and to very few others. Again, kavod or honor, Baruch kavod al Hashem mekomo, blessed be the God from that honor that emanates from His place. His place. What's His place? We don't know His place. We only know the honor that emanates from that place. And so that's what's so significant. And when we use kavod Hashem, honor of Hashem, it's the adornment and honor that an entity experiences for accomplishing a great feat. And we know that creation of the world and all the hosts that live therein is a very significant feat. So that's why we reserve the honor to Hashem, to realize that this is a feat that no other entity could possibly acquire. And just look around you at anything, bechina, and contemplating God's phenomenon every week on a Shabbos. You should look at the at different things around you and realize that they could never have evolved. Never could they have evolved. What we're going to say on. Go a little bit into evolution, that the body is able to exist, live, and grow on the foods and the chemicals in the food and the chemicals in the food. How did that chemicals get into the food to give us life? I mean, that just evolved. I mean, the probability of cards number 1 to 15 shuffled, and for them to come out in numerical order from 1 to 15 would need over 1,300,000,000,000 shuffles to have that combination come out. Over 1,300,000,000,000 shuffles for the cards to come out in numerical order 1 to 15. Now, how do you think the leg of an ant, right? The leg of an ant with all its different odd-shaped cells and mucilage to hook the leg into the body. How long do you think that took it to evolve? It's just like, these are demagogues. They rely on your senses and your feelings, and saying, there's no God. We just it was a big bang, and we evolved from that life of protoplasm all the way into the intricate being that we are today. What foolishness! And that's what it is. Foolishness. because the media and the God forgive people do not believe, and they want the listeners to become agnostics and atheists also. I mean, the media controls people's minds, and evolution. I mean, that's a subject in itself, but it's carbon-14 deteriorating over time, and therefore we determine the length, the life of vegetable matter. Determine the life of vegetable matter, the rate of deterioration of the carbon-14 in vegetable matter. Now, they don't take into account that there were a different climatic conditions years ago, which might have affected the breakdown of the carbon matter, or other bacteria that were present. So there's a whole slew of things that they don't touch on. And what they do say is, well, arbitrarily we're going to date the different rocks, the different strata rocks, based on the fossils that we find in that rock. And if it's no fossils that we find, so that's the oldest rock. And if it's simple cell, it's the next oldest. So so forth and so on. And they put a whole big emphasis on this evolutionary process, rather than to say this is all created by Lord our God, King of the universe. That they will not believe on. Just like that's why, and that's how they turn the people around to believe in evolution as opposed to God and the Creator, right? For look at 435 in Deuteronomy, 439. It says over there in 435, for I have been shown. It says, for you have been shown that you should know that there is a God who created heaven and earth, and no one else, and no thing else. And in 439, you should know, should place it in your heart, that God is the creator of heaven and earth. So we have that those sentences in our Holy Bible, which tells us these facts. And the same thing in Numbers 23:19. In Numbers, the book of Numbers 23:19, it says, God is not a man, or God is not the son of a man. This was given thousands of years ago, before all these falsified ideologies come on the fore. But God knew that the Jewish people, no matter how large or small their numbers are, they will come forward and continue in that vein of calling out in the name of God, in the name of God, the creator of heaven and earth, that there is no evolutionary system of coming from a water creature to amphibian, and then to a bird, and then to a man, with all the intricacies that each has to sustain its life. Well, where were we now? Now, we want to talk about Mount Sinai, because that's very significant in that part, right? You got to write these sentences down. In Exodus chapter 19, verse 5, the Jews came out of Egypt after the 400-year exile, and God spoke to them and said, if you keep the covenant, Oh, covenant. What covenant? The covenant that was made with Abraham. If you keep the covenant and you perform the mitzvahs, you will be a company of priests, a kehilas kohanim. You will be a congregation of priests, knowing the law and how it's derived, and so forth. So that's what we have in 19:5. And the people answered, Nasa, in Exodus, we're in the book of Exodus, and Nasa, they said, we will do, right? And all those that are dependent on us, we will teach them to do. So God in 19:9 came down in the thickness of a cloud and said to Moses words that the people could hear and therefore believe forever. Therefore believe forever. So they came upon the Mount Sinai, and they were given the 10 Commandments verbally. Verbally, they're given the 10 Commandments. And what happened? They verbally heard them. So it says over there in 4:13 in Deuteronomy, very important. For I have taken the covenant, right? I took the covenant, and I have given it to you to observe, right? It uses the word covenant. And the covenant included the written Torah, right? In addition to the 10 commandments that were given at Mount Sinai, also the written Torah was given on Deuteronomy 4:13, because Deuteronomy fills in some of the gaps that were given on Exodus chapter 20, when the words of the 10 Commandments were given. And in Deuteronomy chapter 5 too, God has sealed a covenant with the Jewish people at Horeb. Horeb is the vicinity of Mount Sinai. In other words, he took the written Torah, he took the oral Torah, and he signed a covenant with you at Sinai. That's in Deuteronomy 4:13 and Deuteronomy 5:2. So that does not go into detail in Exodus. Only in Exodus it says that he presented the covenant to them, and he spoke the 10 words, or the 10 commandments. And they are basically a testimony or a remembrance to the entire written and oral Torahs, the entire written and oral Torahs. So we got that charge at Sinai, and that's why we celebrate this important holiday of Shavuos. And if you look in the book, in Exodus, it's going to list the 10 commandments. And it will say the covenant that I brought to them. But in Deuteronomy 4:13 and in 5:2, 4:13, it says that I took the covenant to them, and that included the written and the oral Torahs that you should observe it. So back to the 10 Commandments on chapter 20. Chapter 5 in Deuteronomy talks about recapitulating the additional words of the the Ten Commandments, and they were given over there in chapter 5 in Deuteronomy also. So again, the book of Deuteronomy is a recapitulation of the previous 4 books, plus additional information. So we celebrate the giving of the Torah, but if you look in Exodus, it's only talking about 10 words of the 10 Commandments. So, I mean, what was given. And I explained that 4:13 tells you a covenant was made and what was given at that time at the covenant. And so now, the day after this of Shavuos is the 6th of Sivan, right? The Hebrew calendar, a month of Sivan, where there are 2 calendars, like a fiscal calendar and a regular monthly calendar. There is a fiscal calendar that the governments, Gentile governments have. But we count our calendar according to Rosh Hashanah, beginning of the creation of the world, right? And at the Exodus from Egypt in the month of Nisan. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, right? And Sivan and Nisan, they came out of Egypt from slavery, traveled to pick up the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, right? Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, 6th of Sivan. They heard the 10 Commandments, and then Moses went up to Mount Sinai to get this memorial tablet inscribed with the 10 words, the 10 Commandments. And he went up there and he prayed for 40 days and 40 nights. As a matter of fact, he went up 3 times to the commandments that are brought down, but he conferred with God on many other issues that were necessary in the construction of the portable temple. So what we have here is that Moses stayed 40 days and 40 nights, and he came down on the 7th of Sivan, and the day after Shavuos, he went up, stayed for 40 days, which would be the 17th of the next month, Tammuz, right? 6th of Sivan, 6th of Tammuz, and then 10 more days, 17th day of Tammuz. And he had told the people that he's going to get a carbon copy of the words they heard, and he is expected back at a certain time. But the time overrode, passed, and the Erev Rav, the Gentiles who came out with the Jews, fell back on their old ways and started worshiping a golden calf, and many Jews followed them because, after all, they have a slave mentality. They didn't see their leader, and when Moses came down on the 17th of Tammuz, he saw this, and rather than compromise, like the great compromiser Abraham, the President Lincoln called Paul the great compromiser. To whoever was a Jew, he spoke to him about Judaism. Whoever was a Goy, he spoke to him about new things. Like, Abraham wasn't circumcised to come into the faith, so therefore, when he accepted the charge of God, and therefore, you don't need to be circumcised. He's changing the rules around. That was Paul. So what we have over here, Moses came down. He broke the tablets, rather, to compromise with those demagogues that we have today. You know, the reform and they want to reinvent the wheel and don't want to listen to the leaders of Judaism, which are the heads of the yeshivas, Rabbi Kanevsky and many others, who are the ones that we are to follow, and not the ADL and all the other American Jewish Congress, American Jewish Committee, with all their war chests, have nothing better to do than to reinvent the wheel. How can they be a possible leader if they're not even observant? Yeah, we don't get too tangential, but we do want to say that President Trump is a person, a unique person, that deserves the blessing of the Jewish people, because it says over there in Genesis 12:3 and in Numbers 24:9, whoever blesses the Jewish people is blessed, and whoever curses the Jewish people is cursed. Now, again, we're broadcasting over here on the 21st of August, 2019, and over there it says that current events, you know, the election is going to be held in Israel approximately 1 month from today, on September the 17th. And I strongly feel that Ayelet Shachad is a natural leader and a follower of the Torah, of the Yemina party, which used to be the Yemina used to be the Jewish Home or United Rightist or whatever. Now it's called Yemina, the Rightist Party, and she announced if elected, the establishment of housing, in affordable housing in the territories of Judea and Samaria, which will be going against President Trump's plan, probably, who wants to make a sort of a two-state solution. Anyhow, we see a natural leader in Ayelet Shachad, and it reminds me of the in the books of Judges, Shoftim, one of the 24 books of the Bible, where Devorah sat under the palm tree, and she was the leader of the Jewish people, of the Jewish nation, and she had her general Barak, whom, by the way, is namesake is running for a leftist party in Israel, although he's named Ehud Barak. Ehud was the Jew who killed their persecutor Eglon, and Barak was the general under Devorah. So Ehud Barak, his parents named him, which is a fighter for the Torah values, but unfortunately he turned away from the commitment and following of the Torah. So it's very interesting what will happen in this election, because it seems that both the right and the left are short votes to form a majority of 61. 61 seats are needed for the majority, and a poll came out today on August 21st where the Yemina party, Ayelet Shachad, has 11 seats projected in the polls, and they didn't even start campaigning yet, and the party of Benjamin Netanyahu, Likud has 31, 30 compared to the blue and white. But Lieberman holds the key, and that he feels that the religious parties are not patriotic and serve their own interests, as all the parties do, and their emphasis on having their yeshivas operate for all the young men, and they are studying night and day and learning night and day, as opposed to what we have over here, the observant day school kids that go to school for till 12th grade, if they do, and they don't go to public school, and they are not really knowledgeable in Torah compared to what's needed, in that you need to learn many books, and the books are very slow, especially the oral Torah. Yeah, Meyamosai Kori Neshama B'Yavin. From when to when are we to read the evening prayer of Shema Yisrael? What are the parameters? I mean, that's the first Gemara. What are the parameters? The time limit of saying the prayers. From the time that the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. Well, I want to know what time it is, not about the Kohanim. And you have to think every stage of the teaching. What is happening here? So that's so much for that. Politics. So where are we going now? Let's go to Moses. You see, one of the biggest drives of man is to go to become a seeker from whence he cometh, seeker to God, to see the essence of God. And most people don't realize that that's what they're thinking about, and they express it in terms of travel. People from the east go to the west, people from the west go to the east, people from the north go to the south, etc. You know, they're just killing time, as opposed to using time to the best advantage for their best interest, which is to get to the soul world, and by doing so, living by the precepts of the Torah. Living by the precepts of the Torah. But how do you know what the precepts are? And unfortunately, the Orthodox mentality, whether led by the rabbinate or the people that have the money, continue to have the building complex of build we must, bigger and bigger. You know, that's where we raise money to build, instead of opening the synagogue for everyone to learn Torah. And this is called the Beis HaMedrash, where we sit and learn, and you have a mashgiach or a leader who can help you with any problem that you may have, whether it's Gemara, Talmud, or ideology. And a book on ideology that I recommend is Behold the People, or Rejoice, O Youth, by A. Miller. Get it on Amazon. It's so easy, readable, and enjoyable, and puts things in perspective. He also has written a book on the book of Deuteronomy, where he analyzes all the phrases, most of the phrases in the book, and tells you the ideological teaching from them. And that's called Fortunate Nation. Fortunate Nation. That's what you can read that together with your English translation of the weekly Torah portion that we read in the synagogue. So here we are. Where are we? I don't know. The point is, we're consumed with all kinds of things that have to be done, and it leaves us little time to be to delve into our tradition of teaching and learning Torah. And it's incumbent upon you all that if you don't have a Beis HaMedrash, try to do it yourself. But if you belong to a synagogue, you have to have the synagogue open so that people will come and imbibe and partake of the teachings, the basics. You know, you go to spring training, it's you learn the basics of fielding and hitting and running. So you know, today many of us never received a meaningful Jewish education, yet an education at all. But we have in our genes that drive to seek and to know and to come closer to God. And the synagogues, I haven't seen one synagogue, although I do see one in the Five-Town area. Agudas Israel on Peninsula Boulevard is open if anybody wants to learn, but they don't have a mashgiach to help one and to direct one to the to the book that should be applicable for that person. So, you know, it's got to be really commendable for all those people that find themselves in these large synagogues and come very frequently to pray to God and to ask and what have you in the formulated prayers by the General Great Assembly had formulated those prayers, and of course going back to Sinai, where the oral Torah was given. Again, once we received the covenant in chapter 20, which contains the chapter 4:13, Deuteronomy 4:13, where I took the covenant and gave it to you to observe. And the covenant included the Torahs. They're both written in oral Torahs. Right. So, you know, you're responsible. You're not, you're just a member. You're not the rabbi. You're not the president. You're not the man of wealth. But that's what happened over there in Exodus chapter 32. People stood by. They didn't complain. And that's what it says over there. So why would a plague be sent out after the perpetrators of the revolution and idolatry were summarily tried and punished? And that's because the majority of the people stood by and didn't complain, didn't make a ruckus as to something that would need to be done, and that is education. Right? And Moses came forth over there in that chapter and said, wipe me from your ledger. And we see over there's a ledger, there's a book for everyone. And God has given so much intelligence. You know, 28% of the Nobel Prizes have been awarded to Jewish people, although they only comprise of 0.01%. 0.01 hundredth or 1/100th of a percent. Right? So, you know, why has God given us that intelligence? Not to strive for a higher standard of living or for a better neighborhood or for ephemeral materialistic desires, but to educate oneself and his people of how they should conduct their everyday life. What does it say? You know, the Jews were in the there were, after 40 years, the Jews were commanded to go into cross the Jordan and go into the Holy Land, the Promised Land. And they were to bring with them the altars, the Mishkan, where the ultimate prayer was to offer vicariously an animal representing one's body and one's blood to the belief and the practices of following the Torah, right? Offering or sacrificing on the altar of God according to the Torah has one vicariously sacrificing his body and his blood, which contains the life, the soul, to God. Everything is directed to God. And today, who are these people? Are they around anymore? Yes, these are Haredis. These guys are the ones that learn most of the day and earn whatever was necessary to sustain themselves. And they marry at a young age, and they don't have the problems that the general society and the modern Orthodox and the non-observant Jews have of assimilation and frustration, not able to find a spouse, and going down the trail to immorality, going down the trail to immorality. And just today I saw on the internet, they were doing this on August 21st, there are 2018, the statistics for abortions of IDF female soldiers was 1,000. 1,000 young Jewish girls had abortion in the Israeli army. So that tells you the non-observant, they are on the downside. And it's unfortunate we do not have study halls to read our classic books, to bring them back and to realize what importance there is in life to following the dictates of the Torah, right? And one of our main drives, again, is to seek godliness in this world. And Moses wanted that more than anything else. Even though he went to the mountain 3 times to convene and converse with God, he was not able to see God, essence, only when he was put into the cleft of a mountain. That's in, in chapter 34 in Exodus. And a wind passed by, and a figure, a vision of a back of a person could be seen, which really does not. It's like as if he saw the back of a person, and how much can you know or recognize a person from the back? Practically nothing. And that's how it was with Moshe. Even though he strived to seek Hashem, he was not given that opportunity. And so it was when he was he came down on Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz. He broke the tablets, and then he waited to approximately the end of the month, and he went up again in the month of right, Tammuz and Av. He spent Av, the entire month of Av, 30 days, and the 10 days in Elul, and which where he went forgiven, and he came down with the tablets that were inscribed with the 10 commandments, and he came down and presented it to the Jewish people. And on that day, right? On that day is the day of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, that we wish to have our transgressions annulled, and hopefully we will be able to annul them, so that when we get to the next world, we will see very little that we transgressed, and go not spend time in Gehenna, in hell, and purgatory. And that's what it was. That's what it was over there in the desert when we came to the land of Israel. We are to remember the 8:2 in Deuteronomy. It says, "I tested you and afflicted you to see what is in your mind, see whether you kept the commandments or not." And that's our life. And fortunately, we can't even direct our thoughts to our non-knowledgeable brothers and sisters, right? We should, with all that intelligence, not strive for better neighborhoods and silly ideologies, but grow and have the world grow in the study and the learning of the Torah. So remember, we went up to, we don't know what the mitzvahs, how they protect us. You know, like it's an antibody. They may protect us from certain diseases that are naturally born within us. So the mitzvahs, the commandments, the ordinances, the directives have to be studied and practiced, so that we will be acknowledged by the world and by the Gentiles. That's what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 5. It says, "You should observe the commandments because it is the wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the Gentiles. When his eyes behold and he hears the practices of the Jews, they will say, 'What a wise and understanding people they are that has a God so close to them.'" That has a God so close to them. And that's why we have to recall, to remember all the teachings and to review. And it says you should observe and guard my commandments. Observe means to perform them, and guard means to review. It's constantly to review. Look, I'm not trying to be humble, but I'm not a very intelligent guy. That's it. I mean, I know, compare yourself with other people, and I can see my intelligence is far, far behind. But there's other things that can make up for lack of intelligence, and that is lack of intelligence and being humble and trying to persevere. I mean, you know, I have to work very hard on the things that I'm teaching and giving over, and I want to recommend that everyone out there should tell their friends to join in and can get a few minutes of this teaching by tuning into Yeshiva class. Again, write it down, Yeshiva class, YouTube, 3-minute Torah lesson. That's it. All you have to do. Yeshiva class, YouTube, YouTube, 3-minute Torah lesson. And you get that. It used to be, there's another site, Yeshiva Classroom, 2-minute, but I had problems. I couldn't put it on the internet, and I still have problems with the camera and with the internet. Anybody wants to listen, just spread the word around. Tell your friends. Try to look in for a couple minutes. Other than that, you have my number at 516-280-0662, especially any photography equipment knowledge. Thank you. God bless.